John Davidson Rockefeller got into the oil business almost as an afterthought. Already a wealthy man by his late 20s, Rockefeller saw the future one cold fall day in 1863 when a new railroad reached Cleveland. Now, Cleveland was linked to the oil-rich regions of Pennsylvania. Dozens of petroleum refineries quickly sprang up along the city's rail lines. Rockefeller knew an opportunity when he saw one. In 1864, he bought his first oil refinery. As the Civil War ended and America's economy became more and more industrialized, demand for kerosene grew in the nation's rapidly expanding urban areas. Rockefeller's profits soared. Despite his success, Rockefeller was not content, but his drive to expand his operations was at the mercy of his suppliers, over which he had virtually no control. To Rockefeller, stabilize meant control, and the best way to get control was to buy it. He bought his own ships to transport Rockefeller kerosene from Cleveland to the Midwest, tanker cars to transport crude oil to the company's refineries and warehouses in New York. By 1879, after 15 long years of intimidation, force, and strong arm tactics, the Standard Oil Company controlled an incredible 90% of all refinery operations in the United States. But Rockefeller's overwhelming power caused some Americans to fear that the free enterprise system was in danger. Criticism of Rockefeller reached unprecedented levels. Moving quickly to protect himself, Rockefeller came up with a brilliant plan. In 1882, he organized the Standard Oil Trust.
It was the mechanism by which monopolies were created. What Rockefeller did with all of his oil companies, he, in a sense, folded them into the Standard Trust that ended up owning all of the shares of these companies.
As the 20th century began, the automobile was transforming the oil industry. Gasoline-powered vehicles promised to more than make up for the declining use of petroleum in kerosene production. Between 1900 and 1910, almost 500,000 cars took to America's roads. It was clear that new sources of petroleum would have to be found. Men began looking for the black gold in the most unlikely areas. One of these areas was Texas. The first gusher of Texas crude exploded from the ground on January 10, 1901. It also marked the beginning of the end for Standard Oil's domination of the oil industry. By 1910, Texas-based oil companies were starting to compete for markets throughout the country. The once invincible Standard Oil began to show cracks. In 1911, those cracks burst. On January 6th, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the Standard Oil Trust was in violation of federal laws which prohibited the restraint of trade. Chief Justice Edward White ruled that Standard Oil would have to be broken up.